But are you saddened by their next film, The Boxtrolls?
Yes,
That'll do.
And unfortunately, it's in a segue that works because, yes, I am. Another children's book, Alan Snow's Here Be Monsters, serves as the basis for Leica's third feature, The Boxtrolls, as Scott said, which sees the town of Cheesebridge and its coagulated milk product obsessed denizens plagued by an infestation of baby-snatching underground monsters. These monsters are the Boxtrolls, shy, harmless creatures who obtain their names from the discarded boxes from which they create clothing. They're a bit Wombo-like too. They go a bit beyond simply making good use of the things that the everyday folks leave behind, going with the logic that it stands to reason that this perfectly good cartwheel or this perfectly good cart will eventually get left behind, so we'll just take it now since it's going to happen anyway and save everyone the trouble. That's their biggest crime though, except for the clearly unforgivable ones of being different and looking a bit funny. So it's a mystery why they have in their midst a human child, Eggs, Game of Thrones Isaac Hempstead Wright, that they have raised since a baby, and who doesn't even realise he's a human. The answers to this mystery may lie with Archibald Snatcher. Despite everything about the character and the voice screaming Timothy Spall, he's voiced by an unrecognisable Ben Kingsley, the leader of the red hat wearing Boxtroll exterminators, who desires more than anything the right to don one of the white hats of the city's big cheesies. Yes, big cheesies. Sadly, that's the level most of this script is operating at.
And I love it.
And he's not going to let a simple thing like violent and disturbing lactose intolerance stop him, nor the inconvenient questions of the mayor's bratty but curious daughter Winifred, voiced by Elle Fanning. Said child eventually meets Eggs, and together they discover the fate of the Boxtrolls that Snatcher has snatched, and the reasons why he was raised by these timid creatures instead of his father. Neither they nor we will discover why Snatcher is also moonlighting as the beloved cabaret entertainer Madame Frou-Frou though, this being a plot point that seems to go nowhere, except to make an almost offhand joke about regretted feelings that, in 2020, feels about as Victorian as the film's setting. The whole cheese thing falls completely flat too. It's not saying anything interesting or clever. The cheese obsession just seems to be because it'd be a bit weird if everyone was daft about cheese to the exclusion of everything else, wouldn't it? And then allows for a few lame puns. A fromage fixation might have been enough for the inciting incident of the 23-minute long A Grand Day Out, but it can't carry the weight it's being asked to in this feature-length The Boxtrolls. The Boxtrolls is something of a case of style over substance, with neither the story nor the characters being anything like interesting enough. And style it certainly has, along with Leica's typical disdain for the easy way to do anything. Snatcher's steampunk vehicle in the finale is large, complex, clearly phenomenally difficult to animate, but sadly, here, in service of pretty much nothing. And that's really the problem. It's full of pretty much nothing. It is, of course, expertly animated, typically ambitious and visually wonderful, but when your most interesting character is a henchman, and only interesting because it's voiced by Richard Ayoade, you have a problem. Frankly, it's boring, and very much like his low point as a feature film studio. Fortunately, things will get better. Oh yes. Although it sounds like maybe you have somewhat different feelings to myself in this one, Scott.
To a degree, although I don't disagree that it is their worst film, although I don't think it's a worst film that I would say is actually a bad film. This was the only time I've seen this film. I had a bit of a blind spot for this up until now. I hadn't got around to seeing it, and I enjoyed it well enough for my first go through. Unlike all the rest of them, though, I think it's a film that I don't intend to ever go back to. I think I've extracted everything that I needed to on that first viewing. There's a lot of cheese-based puns, and to be honest, that's good enough for me. Who could be so horrible a human being as not to appreciate the good old punnery basis of this? And yeah, there's some strong voice performances, somewhat weird in a few castings. As you say, Ben Kingsley, why? I don't know why you need to spend your budget on that. I mean, I don't think he does a bad job, to be clear. He gets across that very well, but yes, it is not very Ben Kingsley in the slightest. So,
yes, and I'm sure Timothy Spall comes cheaper, and he sounds like Timothy Spall. Basically, yes. If you know Timothy Spall as the Beadle in Tim Burton's Sweeney Todd. It's basically the same character. It's like very much like it's slightly kind of angrier rather than greasy and obsequious, but it's basically that. It's like Timothy Spall would come a lot cheaper rather than getting an Oscar winner to sound not at all like himself.
Yeah. But yeah, there's that. I like Nick Frost and Richard Ayoade and all that as well. But it's mainly impressive just on the, as you say, on the technical level. Just the visuals of it are, again, very distinctive from, I think, the rest of their work.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised. I didn't do enough research into working out that this was based on someone else's story, because the story is clearly the weakest thing that's there, which is unusual, because I thought, if I recall correctly, Paranorman's like an original work.
I believe so,
yeah, and I thought this was just another kind of one of their kind of baby steps in towards what they actually blossomed into with Kubo and the Two Strings, just to spoil that somewhat a little bit. That it's an adaptation's thrown me a little bit, because yes, I was going to say that was clearly the weakest part of it, and if that's not even Leica's fault, then maybe I'm not going to harp on that too much. But yeah, the rest of it's fun. I enjoyed it well enough for watching it through the once. It raised a few laughs. I quite like the visual design, and as you say, it's another evolution of Leica being mental in what they're prepared to do to put a film on screen, because the amount of work, as is kind of alluded to in the little post-credits scene, I suppose you could call it, where they talk about the animation required to do even the basic stuff, let alone this steampunk monstrosity that's been designed by Ben Kingsley to capture trolls, is really quite an achievement. And yeah, it's got enough kind of visual. As you say, you're right on the money with the style over substance thing. I think there is enough style there to kind of warrant viewing it once. But yeah, it's certainly not something I would be purchasing on Blu-ray and putting into the vaults. But yeah, I enjoyed it well enough this first time through. But yeah, I'm probably never going to go back to this again.
This was my second viewing. Just like, to add the puns. Normally I love puns. I think you know that about me, Scott.
Yeah.
Sometimes
but you do
the
hate
worst,
cheese. So
sometimes the worse the better. So I don't know whether I appreciated puns more the last time, but it just seemed like that's all it had, and some of them weren't great. Although I do admit I kind of snort laughed at the. Is it Cottage Street or Cottage Cheese Street? It's like Curd's Way turns into it, and then you get a little hit from the one man band that's there too. Okay, I like that. But most of the rest of the stuff, apart from maybe the huge cheese they buy, which they call the Breer moth,
yes,
they weren't doing a lot of me this time. However, I will add a proviso that when I rewatched this last night, I was incredibly tired. I barely slept the night before, and I had to get up early, and I was fighting to stay awake. So it's not the best situation to watch in, but so how much that coloured my enjoyment of it this time. But when I watched it the first time a few years ago, I thought it was okay, and no more than that. Whereas in this rewatch, I liked it substantially less. So yes, it's not a sort of film I'm suggesting that gets better with rewatch. No, it's like once maybe.
Yeah,
and it's the lack of substance that's the problem. It's this such beautiful animation, and as you said, none of their films look like their other films.
Yeah,
they've created a very distinctive style for each film, so it looks great and it has its own unique look, and I don't see the point of it. It's the story does nothing for me. So you're just watching the animation, and I mean, that's enjoyable enough. And none of these films are particularly long films, but I still, by the end of this, my attention was wandering, even with the fact that I was desperate to sleep.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, you could watch another time, but well, we're recording this today, and I didn't have time. I hadn't watched it yet. But it's definitely not their strongest work, which is a real pity. And the fact they hit such a low point after only their third film, that's not great.
Yeah.
But yes, as I said, Scott, things will get better, substantially better